Hello, and welcome back to our English lesson. Today we're going to continue looking at the structure of an Overcome the Story Monster and try and fit our version of Beowulf into it and box it up into different sections that we can then use to help us make small changes to write our own Overcome the Monster story. Before we start that, a quick short write task for you. Here you can see an image, and what I want you to try and do is just take a moment, have a look at the details in this picture, and I want you to write a short paragraph which describes this setting. But looking at it, I want you to try and make it seem spooky, almost as if this forest is hiding a monster. Remember, hint at the unknown and think about the little tricks that you can use in order to make it a scary, spooky location. Pause now and have a go. Okay, so here's our story mountain for overcoming a monster. Our first step is anticipation. If we remember from before, this is where the hero becomes aware of the monster in far off lands, or we find out about the setting of the place, and he might be chosen in order to overcome that monster. We have the dream section, which is all about where he begins his journey or expresses his goals of what his intentions are in order to stop the monster. They may not be close at this stage, either time or distance may be separating, but they are getting closer to that confrontation. Then we have frustration, that moment where the battle begins and they are face to face on the battlefield. And this is where the reader and the hero start to doubt maybe the ability of the hero to win. Maybe the odds are stacked against them, or maybe they are unsure of how to defeat the monster, what they can do to win the fight. Our next section is the nightmare. And remember, this is the part that we missed out from our model text in order for you to write it. So I hope you have that to hand. Now, this is the black moment, the moment where all hope is lost, where you think that the hero is going to lose the fight. It could just be the end with the monster winning. And this is a true moment of feeling between the reader and the hero, and you want the hero, or you want the reader to really be on the side of the hero at this stage. And then you have your miraculous escape. Somehow the tides turn and the hero's effort, cleverness, determination, or sheer luck enables the hero to overcome the monster, and good finally triumphs over that evil. And quite often in this case, you also get some sort of reward for the hero, or a prize in this case, or he shows off his victory in some way. So these are our sections: anticipation, dream, frustration, nightmare, and miraculous escape. And when we're boxing it up, there are a couple of things we want to look at. So first, in the anticipation section, you're looking for introducing the setting, probably introducing a support character and thinking about what the problem may be. You probably haven't told the reader necessarily exactly what the problem is, or you might have done. You might be hinting at things that could happen. But what you're trying to do is get the reader involved in the situation that the story is set in. Now, you can introduce your main character at this stage, or you can introduce them later. But what you're trying to do is build the situation, the problem, the setting up for the reader to understand where they are and what's going on. Then you have your dream. Normally you introduce your main character, you have a talk between the king and main character about the quest or monster slaying or whatever the problem happens to be. It doesn't have to be a king either in this case. It could be a queen, could be the government, could be a god, somebody that's giving the task to the hero, which is to overcome that monster slaying. Then you have frustration. This is the journey and the monster, or journey and monster attack at the start of the fight. So hero and monster meet and then start their fight. And this is really important because Actually, how they meet is quite interesting. Does the hero go to the monster's lair? Do they fight on their turf, or do they wait for the monster to attack and defend against them? And this is a choice you do have to make. Next, you've got the nightmare. This situation where the hero looks like they might lose the fight. All hope is gone. We're feeling for the hero at this stage. We really want them to do well. Then you have your miraculous escape, your resolution to the scene. The hero manages to overcome the nightmare through skill, cleverness, courage, or just luck. Maybe they get a reward for defeating the monster. And sometimes, if it's linked to another story, there's a hint at more trouble to come. And actually, in the main story of Beowulf, this happens when they hint at the fact that there is something older and more evil than Grendel itself. So what we're going to do, we're going to have a look at the different sections of our model text and then put them into our box up. I'm going to do the first one for you. I'm going to do anticipation, this introduction of setting, support character, and the rise of the problem. And I'm going to talk through the bits that go into there. I'm going to put it in note form. I'm not going to necessarily say it out loud. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to set you a task, and we'll go through the next couple. So hear and listen well, my weary warriors, and I will tell you a tale that has been told for 1,000 years and more. In ages past, Denmark was a wild place. Gruesome monsters roamed the misty moors. The king of the Danes, the warrior king Hrothgar, defeated many a foe, collecting riches and followers alike. He was known as a generous and fair king. He ordered work on a great mead hall to house his bannermen. Soon there it stood, Harut, made of the finest wood, decorated with silver and gold. Each night the king invited his bravest warriors to a lavish feast of roasted meat, jugs of frothing ale, and music for dancing feet. Inside, the men ate and drank until they fell asleep, but outside, something evil was rising. Across the moor, a foul monster crawled from its swamp lair. The almost formless creature of nightmares slunk from its lair, howling in rage as its slumber had been disturbed by the revel makers. Silently, the god-cursed brute crept into Harut, waiting till the warrior king had left his hall. In the dead of night, Grendel attacked like a sudden storm, leaving the hall in disarray. No bodies remained, only the life essence of their passing. Grendel ruled the night, and the great Harut stood empty for 12 winters. Now, in this case, all of this is our anticipation, our starting, our setting. Because we have to paint a picture for the reader, we have to go into quite a detail in order for them to understand what the situation that the hero is being put. And that's why this is quite a large section of our model text. Now, if you were not having to paint so much of a picture, it wouldn't be quite as long. And some of the other sections later on can be longer than they are in our model text. But if we made them too long, then it'd be hard to remember and use to help us. So what do we have? I'm going to show you my notes now. So here are my notes. First off, how do we start? Hear and listen well. And there's lots of other ways you can start that. And we'll think about some other ways in another lesson. We know that it's happened in ages past, and we have a setting, which is Denmark. And this setting is filled with monsters down here, look. Let's just come on. So we have, it's filled with monsters down here. So, filled with monsters. And we know that because it says up here is a wild place and gruesome monsters roamed the misty moors. So it's filled with monsters. We know about Hrothgar. We're introducing Hrothgar. This is our support character, the character that gives us the quest or gives us the task to overcome. We know he's a warrior king, generous and fair, and defeated many foe when young. And this is all in this part of our model text. So if we've got all of that, there's one other bit in here that we need to think about, which is Harut. So he ordered Harut to be built. And it was an amazingly decorated hall in which his bravest warriors could come. So we've got down here, he ordered Harut built, an amazing hall decorated. Then Hrothgar holds a feast for all, and it's very noisy. And this is all in this section of our model text here. We know here that there must have been lots of noise because they had music for dancing feet. We know there is a feast that goes on, and we know it happens each night. So we've got an idea of the situation that is going on here. Now, there is something that I hinted at here, but it's this hint. There's outside something evil was rising. And you could, if you wanted to, at the bottom down here, hint the unknown. And that's what we're doing with that particular statement there. Now, what you'll also see is we've got slightly more information. This whole bit here is the information about the monster. So what we've said is we know it wakes it because it's howling and rage, and its slumber has been disturbed. If it's waking the monster. We know its name. It's called Grendel. It's given to us there and again later. We know that it attacks the hall. It crept into Harut, waited for the dead of night, and attacked. We know that no one was left alive. No bodies remained. Only Hrothgar as he had left the hall. And we know that it happened for 12 winters, which means that we know that it lasted for 12 years. And this is an important fact because it gives us another piece of information. How desperate must Hrothgar have been if this had been happening for 12 years? Okay, so what your task is going to be, you're going to continue the box up for the model text. So remember, you only need to put the key parts in, those bits which are important to remember, and those bits that you might be able to change in order to change the story slightly and make it your own. What you'll also need to do is use your own nightmare to fill in the nightmare box. And the reason why we're going to use that is because you'll still need a nightmare in our shared write, but it might be slightly different depending on which one you're using. So the next is our dream section, and our notes come from: news of this dreadful tragedy spread far and wide to all the princes of different lands. But only one of them, the greatest and bravest Beowulf, decided this night terror must be stopped. Aboard a seaworthy ship, he sailed the whale road to Denmark with 14 hand-picked warriors. When Beowulf arrived, sudden hope warmed the old king's heart. Together they feasted until night fell. Pause now and have a go at filling out this box. Next. As darkness swallowed light, the swamp bubbled and Grendel rose. Grisly, grim, and gruesome, no word could describe this brute. Beowulf crouched in the shadows, his steely eyes fixed on the murdering monster. Without a weapon, Beowulf pounced, grasping the monster's arm. Grendel wreathed and thrashed, but Beowulf would not let go. Grendel swiped and slashed, but Beowulf would not let go. The hall shuddered, benches shattered, but still Beowulf refused to let go. And this is the start of our fight, where they meet and have the very beginning of their fight. So see if you can fill this box in with the key information from this part of our story. Pause now and have a go. Okay, so at this stage, the next one you're going to have to do is the nightmare. And that comes from the little bit you wrote as to how Beowulf might be put right on the verge of losing before he finally rips the arm off. So pause now and fill in your nightmare box for me. And then we move on to our final section, our miraculous escape. He tugged the monster's arm and it tore from its body. Roaring in pain, the monster smashed through the walls and charged into the night, staggering across the moor. Beowulf stood holding the monster's arm. He knew there was no way the beast could survive such a mortal wound, its life ebbing away drop by drop. Grendel was defeated. By the next morning, the news of the great fight at Harut had spread throughout the land, so that everyone should know that the tyrant was truly dread, and their grief finally at an end. The hero hung high in the gables of Harut, where all could see that torn off limb, gruesome witness to the monster's violent end. And this is our last section, and I want you to use this part to fill in our last box on our box up. Just think about what the key ideas are and put it down in note form for me. And then we're going to use these ideas in the next couple of lessons. Goodbye, and I'll see you in the next lesson.